What's up, friends, family, and fans? Thanks for tuning in to this special episode. Today's episode, I'm going to talk about my very first bass. But first, before we get too far into the video, I have to do the obligatory. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel so you can stay up to date on all the content. I've been banging out lots of videos lately. I've been doing my Coronavirus Chronicles, my Fishing with JangoMike show, and all the usual bass stuff, whether it's just the cool parts or me jamming an entire song playthrough, all kinds of stuff. Trying to keep you guys entertained and help you get through this, this dark time right now. We're all stuck at home. We're all on YouTube watching a bunch of shit right now. So I'll do my best to contribute some content, which is why I'm doing this video today about, my first bass. Why not? I know people ask the question, so might as well get to it. So let's get right back to what I was talking about, though. Believe it or not, I actually have not been playing bass very long, considering that I know guys that have been playing their whole freaking lives. That's not me. I got into bass later in life, like much later, as an adult. That's kind of a story and probably a video unto itself, so I'm going to save the details, but in a nutshell, by the time I got out of the Army, I was gigging as a drummer again, and I was just not feeling it anymore as a drummer. Everything changed. I came home from the Iraq War. Everything was different, and I just didn't want to play drums anymore. So I started noodling around on bass. I borrowed a bass from my buddy in the meantime while I was, gigging as a drummer and started picking up gigs as a bass player. Eventually, those gigs got pretty steady as a bass player. So I was like, well, shit, I better get my own bass. So I got this thing. This bass is what's called a Traben brand bass. Traben's a brand. It's no longer around, but at the time, John Moyer from Disturbed was playing Traben, and Bootsy Collins was playing Traben. They were around for like a few years, not very long, and I believe they folded already. That's just kind of the way it goes. It's a pretty decent bass. It's a good mid-level bass. Definitely not high end, but not exactly cheap and shitty either. It's got like this blood looking color wood. It's really cool. I mean, it's probably painted. I don't think it's the wood. It's just painted this blood color. But I really like the color. Thought it was cool. It is a bolt-on. It has active pickups and a preamp, and it's a 36-inch scale bass, so pretty long. A little longer than like your standard Fender, which is a 34-inch scale. Eventually, at some point though, the stock pickups, they died out, and I went ahead and upgraded. Well, at the time, I thought I was upgrading because I didn't know any better. But I added some EMGs to it and an EMG preamp, and it did improve the sound like dramatically as far as like, the signal quality that was coming out of the bass and going into the board, which is cool. So one thing that's kind of funny about this bass is like why I picked it out. If you look at it, for some reason, some people think it's got like Carl Thompson bass similarities. It does not. And that's not why I picked this bass out. So when people say that to me, I'm always like perplexed and baffled. No, this bass is nothing like a Carl Thompson at all in any way, shape, or form. The reason I got this bass is kind of stupid. You see this bridge design right here. Now, when I was out looking at basses with my buddy, I was like, dude, look at this bridge. Doesn't that look like something that the Predator would get and like use it as like a weapon to fucking fuck someone up? So that's what drew me to this bass, was that. I'm like, oh, it's the fucking Predator bass. That's what we called it for the longest time. But then eventually, like, I played it, I jammed it, and I had active pickups, so I had a very, like, bright, crisp, like, sound to it, very metallic, very, very crisp and tinny, which is kind of like the sounds that I like as a bass player. It wasn't like a jazz bass that was kind of like a little warm and muddy. Like, it had the sound that I liked, the sound that I was looking at. It wasn't quite an entry-level bass, but it wasn't quite an advanced bass. It was like mid-entry. So it was just right. It was just in the budget, just in the pocket of what I needed at the time. And I gigged with it for a while, for some years. I gigged a lot of like rock band stuff, a lot of original music. There was a lot of metal bands that I did some gigging work for, filling in and doing some shows. And, eventually got into some bands that were doing some of the dance stuff. And I was able to use, the volume and tone knobs to kind of adjust the sounds accordingly if it needed to be heavy and chunky or if it needed to be, warm and bassy for dance stuff. It did it all, which was really cool. It's extremely light. It's got this really small body. It's not balanced, though. Like, it'll fall over. It's not like a Carl Thompson. It's not going to sit there. It's a cool bass, It gets the job done. It's just, once I got my Carl Thompson, there's no fucking point. Like, why would I drive this around? Like, that's kind of how I see it. Like, this bass is like a Honda Civic compared to my Lamborghinis. So, why would I not, But every once in a while I like to crack it open and jam some songs. I figured I would do a video and talk about it on here. And a lot of people ask when they come over, they see it in the studio, they're like, oh, what's that? What's that? The strings I use originally, before I got linked up with GHS, I was using the Dean Markley Blue Steels. I think it's made by Dean Markley. The Blue Steels. And they were cool, but eventually, once I linked up with GHS, I found the progressive strings, and those sound great. They work well with my Carl Thompson basses, so naturally, whatever strings I have on, I put them on here. So these do have the Mike Garza signature strings from GHS on them as well, along with all my Carl Thompsons and my Hilton bass. I used to have this bass in a 5-string as well, but I don't know. Something happened. I ended up selling it. I didn't keep it. It might have been around the time I had what I called the Great Purge. Meaning that once I got my Carl Thompson bass, I sold everything. I sold all my other basses. Because once I started getting into playing more, I started getting more basses. Like, I got some jazz basses and like some Ibanez and all kinds of stuff. Like, I was on a buying spree. I was trying to find the sound and trying to fill this void that in the meantime while I'm waiting for my Carl Thompson to get done. So I had like a bunch of jazz basses. I know I had like a couple Geddy Lees, and I had a modified 70s style jazz, Marcus Miller style jazz bass, and like, it was cool. But once I got the Carl Thompson bass, the first one, it was like, there is no need to have any more basses. I'm going to get rid of all of them. And I did. I ditched the 5-string Traben. I ditched all the Fenders and everything else. And that was all she wrote, baby. But I kept this one because this was technically my first bass. And, I'm going to keep it forever. It's not a Carl Thompson. It's nothing like it, but it's cool. This is the little Honda Civic that's sitting in the garage that you bust out every once in a while. Just take it for a spin. It's cool. All right, so let me do some rearranging, and I'll set up and do some jams for you, and we'll kind of go from there. All right. So that's pretty much all that can be said that I can say about my first bass. I really didn't know what I was getting into or what I was doing, and I've never been one to get all nerdy on technical stuff anyways. Just bottom line is, you know, it was my first bass. I was getting into working as a professional, and I needed something that kind of looked and played the part, and it worked for me. It worked, got me through the gigs, got me paid well. Can't complain about that. And then eventually when it was time to move on to something better, I did. And that's that, you know. With that being said, let's go ahead and wrap this baby up. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to my channel so that we can stay up to date on all the content. I've been pumping out videos like crazy lately, so if you're subscribed, you'll get to see as they come. With that being said, go play some bass, and we'll catch up soon. Thank you.